Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story, the podcast or vodcast, however you're choosing to watch or listen to this today, that I created based after my book, Stories from Web. And the whole idea behind this series is for me to bring on people who have inspired me. I've heard pieces of their story, or I felt like you needed to experience them as well. I am so thrilled this week to have my guest, Kathryn Washington, on with me today. So, Kathryn, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody who you are?
Hi, everybody. My name is Kathryn Washington, and golly, I am the principal, the proud principal of Goodrich Elementary School. I've been the principal. This is my 12th year. I can't believe it. And my 28th year in education. I started when I was 12. And so that's pretty much who I am. My school is in a rural area, and it's a small campus, and it's very challenging with being small, but we love it. And so that's all about me, I guess. Where I am currently.
Well, Kathryn, did you always want to be an educator?
No. Okay, how can we start this? Wow. I actually was a computer science major in college, and you know how college finished a little early, and so I was substitute teach to make money. I was a poor college student, and got the teaching bug. I was just substituting and connecting with the kids, and my background is basically a lot of educators. And I guess that's why I was like, I don't know if I want to go that way, because I would hear my mom and all my aunts and uncles, they all were in education, and they would talk about these children and the parents and the whole, I would hear all the inside stories that you would hear, around the table on Sunday. So when I went to school, I would love computers, and so that was my major. I was an engineer major, and then substitute and was substituting at one of my former schools that I was, because I was went to school in my neighboring where I grew up at, and so I just saw the need and got the bug, and the rest is history.
So, when you first started teaching, what did you start teaching?
I started teaching math and science, fourth grade. And actually, I student taught, and the principal hired me at the school where I did my student teaching. So,
really?
Yes, she did.
So,
Sandra Ellen, that's my first principal.
There you go. Shout out to her.
Shout out to her.
You didn't. Your education was not your original goal, but you became an educator. What was the thing that you think probably surprised you the most when you were in the beginning years of teaching?
I guess what surprised me the most was that I felt like I had been there, or I had been doing this. This was like, it just was such a good fit and connection. And, my family was all about service to the community. My father's a pastor, and so he's been pastoring the same church for 39 years. And so grew up in all of that, in service, and helping others. And I guess my surprise was that being able to reach children that needed hope, and because I've always been at a Title I campus, and I believe that's just was my calling. And when you talk about being an educator, it is a calling. You feel that fit, like, oh my God, I found what I'm supposed to do on this earth. And I guess that's the most rewarding thing, because actually my first class of fourth graders, I'm still in contact with them, and one in particular asked me to be the matron of honor in her wedding. I was like, what?
That's amazing.
Yes, and her name was Precious, and she was precious. And so when she asked me, I'm like, "Are you serious? I'm old." And she said, "No, you're not." And I'm like, okay. But that I think that was the most that surprised me, that I was able to connect with the children, and they became my children. And so I think that was the most surprising of it all. You go into education and you want to change the world, but when you get into the classroom and you see the lives unfold, I think that's always the light bulb. They get in the light bulb and they're actually growing in what you're, and receiving what you're giving them. And back then, way back in 91, 1991, I don't think I would have thought then that I would still be enjoying what I'm doing now. So it's just on a different level. When you're a principal, that it's on a different level.
How long did you teach before you became a principal?
I taught for 11 years, Todd. I did not want to be a principal.
That's what I was going to ask. Like how did that transition even happen?
Well, like I said, I just knew that teaching was my calling, and loved it so much. I had so much fun in the classroom, and I had when I got married and moved out to Houston, Miss Delaney, Dr. Delaney now, knew that I was going to school to get my master's, and I got my master's in curriculum and instruction. I was not doing administration. And so when I graduated, she said, "Well, what are you going to do? Are you going to pursue administration, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm loving what I'm doing." And so she was the one who told me that if you go into administration, you can affect more lives. Mm-hmm. So not just your classroom, but you get to put your hands and be able to touch on more than just the children and be able to shape that. And that was the first time someone had mentioned that or described being a principal to me as being able to affect more children. Right. And so when she explained it that way, and she was a phenomenal principal, I said, well, that planted the seed. And then when I had my baby and moved closer to home, and I was in Klein ISD, I had another phenomenal principal, Susan Borg, who's now Dr. Borg. But she said, "I want you to be my assistant principal." I'm like, "Really?" And I said, "For you, I'll try." And so I told her the rest is history. It's her fault, for getting me to be her assistant principal. And it just flourished. And she was right. So instead of just, impacting my 125 that was in my rotation, because I was teaching math then, you have the different classes flowing through. I was able to now impact 1,400 kids, because at that campus, that's how many there. Yes. And then I went on.
There are almost 800. There are almost 800 at my school, and I can't even imagine having more. So bless you for being able to do that.
Well, and what ended up happening was I ended up going to the high school. They asked me to go up because I knew the kids. And so then I had 3,600 kids.
No, thank you.
I know. Well, and on that campus, they had 12. It was 12 APs. So it was 3,600. And it was like a mini city, but you only really noticed it at the beginning of the school. And then I had my certain house that I had about 400. So that's how we would divide and conquer with that. And so, and then from there, I worked on my doctorate. And so I was in administration. So I got in educational leadership. So that's how that came about. Because I knew at a young age I wanted to get my doctorate degree, but I just didn't know what, and so that's how that ended up.
Wow. So being a principal, having that administrative role, what do you think is the biggest thing you've learned about yourself while being a campus leader?
Wow, The biggest thing that I have learned about myself being a campus leader, I guess I've learned over the past 12 years of how to see talent, how to see um, where they fit in on my campus. Um, I learned that everyone is not going to be like me, organized, meticulous, um, all about that, but they fit in a certain area because your students don't come to you all the same way. So why would your teachers be the same? And, but they fit into your program, but just in different ways. So everyone has a strength and a weakness. And I think over the 12 years, I've learned how to see that and trust me, when I see talent, I snap it right up. And I say, oh, yes, you're great in reading. Love it. You will be great at blah, 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 blah. And so I think that's the most thing that I have learned is just the learning to see talent, see a bigger picture and how it fits in your whole campus culture.
So, you're also an adjunct professor, aren't you?
Yes.
So you just do it all, in other words, just do everything. So
well,
what's that like teaching at a college?
Well, and I say that I got I wanted my doctorate degree because I still love teaching. And so instead of just teaching the kids, my ultimate dream job is whenever I finish on this journey of with the kids and education, I want to be able to give back, share my knowledge with the upcoming, like you, Todd, that will be, I tell my teachers all the time, I will be able to retire soon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would love to grow. I like to grow what's coming up and the quality that's coming up in public education, because public education gets such a bad rap. And I just have a passion for that. So that's what I went into getting my doctorate degree, to be able to teach the leaders that are coming up, right, to share experiences, because we learn a lot of books and the theories and but to be able to share real life challenges and situational type things, that's what I want to be able to pass on. So that could be in leadership, or they could be in mathematics, because mathematics is still my first love. And so that's the reason why I wanted to pursue in that. So I started out when I graduated from Sam Houston and taught a couple of principal classes there. And then my professors from over there, some of them moved to HBU. So that's how I ended up at HBU as an adjunct professor over there. And so I teach right now. I'm teaching classroom management, and I have taught educational leadership. I've taught principalship. I've taught you name it, they give it to me. I said I can teach it, I can learn it, and we can keep it moving. And it keeps me fresh and seeing what's coming up. Like, oh yeah, you'd be awesome at, wow, you're so talented, and just to encourage them that because we will need them, we will definitely need them.
So you seem like such a go-getter, somebody who is like, I see a need, I'm going to fill it, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to learn, I'm going to better myself, I'm going to better others. Have you always been that way, or is that something that you grew into?
According to my mother, I've always been the mother of the family. I am number 2 of 4. Uh-huh. And I'm what they call one of the middle kids, but they would call me Lil Mama, or, the mama, the second mama. And so I guess what molded me was that we used to call ourselves, my maiden name was Walker, mind you. And so my dad loved the Waltons. And so he used to call us the Waltons instead of the Walkers, because we're a close-knit family. My parents would be in the community and serve in the community, being a, mom was a music teacher, my dad being a pastor. And so a lot of times I would be one of the older ones at home with my brothers. And so you just step into that mother role. It's been natural for me to just always want to take care and meet the needs and cook and clean and pick up. Since my mom has passed, she passed away in 2011. But my dad said, I never knew I created so much mess until Mama said, because we used to always clean up, behind it and keep the house clean. But that pretty much prepared me or propelled me. That's always been my thing, and always been about family and nurturing. And because even like Thanksgiving, oh my God, it's over here. We have a pre-Thanksgiving where both my husband and my family get together. So that's about 75 people in my house.
Wow.
Yes. And every time I create some either karaoke or like this Thanksgiving, we did a goose chase where they were all running around the house doing a scavenger hunt. It's always some type of entertainment. And then I cook, of course. And so that's always been, I guess, that all developed that nurturing, always seeing a need, and then seeing that being modeled with my parents and my grandparents. My aunt Ainsil calls us the tribe of Levi because we're servants. That's just our family. We serve. My grandmother, on my father's side, she never worked, but what she did was she kept house, she fed, she would feed the community. Their doors were never locked. People just would walk in and eat. And so I grew up in that environment of loving family, no matter if you're adopted, no matter if you a stepdaughter or anything. When you came in the Walker's house, you were family. And so we were like that, in the neighborhood. We were the house, and at my grandparents' house, they were the house. And so that in itself, and then I guess the go-getter part came from my father, who always preached and modeled about education was the key. For us, education was the key out of poverty. And once we learned something, he didn't say that, but he always would model, you give back and pull people up to better the community. And so that was just, that's just what we would do. So if someone else couldn't speak, because I had somebody say, well, you always speak up. And I'm like, well, I was trained. When you know better, you do better. And then when you help others along that can't speak for themselves, kind of like Moses and Aaron. Moses wasn't, the eloquent speaker, but Aaron would speak for him. And so that kind of thing, that's how I grew up.
That's beautiful. Well, you seem kind of like this superwoman who can do all of these things, but I know you're human. So how do you balance it all to maintain your own sanity and not get burnt out?
Well, I have a wonderful husband. And you learn to defrag, take R&R. Once we were able to, every summer we would have a vacation. We would do a vacation every summer, family vacation if we could. We always try to invite, and just being able to get away. Because when I first became a principal, my son went to my school.
Really?
And that was an experience. Yes, that was an experience for him. But what we did was, when we would come home, I told him, give me 30 minutes. And he would go to his room for 30 minutes, and then I would go to my room for 30 minutes, and just kind of release the day, and then I can become mom. And so I just learned, we use the term compartmentalizing your brain. When I go to school, when I walk through the door, I'm 100% Dr. Washington, about business, about school, about that. When I leave the building, and that's something you have to learn, is to let it go when you leave the building, even though it's still going on because your phone's still ringing, you everything like that. But I learned to at least take 30 minutes of quiet time and just kind of defrag. And then, like I said, I have a wonderful husband who always thinking of things for us to do. Like last night, I was at the Justin Timberlake concert.
Look at you.
So, and I think my faculty and staff was more excited than I was. They say, take plenty of video, take pictures. It was awesome. And so, as he say, we go away from reality for a minute, and then we come back, and you just keep yourself centered that way and it also keeps you in frame of what's important. Because for us, family is important. Making sure you're sane and you have your health, and you take care of family. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else.
Well, Kathryn, I know you do a lot of work with a lot of different organizations, the Education Service Center, TEPSA, things like that. And, and I speak to a lot of educators as well. And one thing that I hear a lot, not only from classroom teachers, but also from administrators, is this feeling of overwhelmed or not appreciated, or it's just too much, or they're fighting a battle that just seems like this uphill battle. And I know you have got to have seen glimpses of that, if not experienced that on your own as well. But for those educators or who may be listening today, or leaders who may be listening today, what advice would you give on how you keep going when it just seems like everything is against you?
My advice will be to develop a support system. Like I said, family is important to me. I can bounce things off my husband, off my sisters, off my brothers. One of my brothers is actually a coach, so he's in the fight with me, I call it. But having that support system, it's kind of like Oprah and Gail. Gail is her therapy. She would talk everything out with Oprah, and that would keep you sane. You would need to have somebody that's sane. And then also, my father has always taught us to be a part of an organization that where you can. So like when I was a teacher, I was a part of the teacher organization and was a representative and was in Austin fighting, at the state capitol. And when I became an administrator, they told me about the different organizations to be an administrator. And that's the thing I love about TEPSA. Shout out to TEPSA, the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisor Association. The gathering of other principals who know exactly the challenges, and it just inspire you to see like people like you. I loved your campus. It was beautiful, all kind of ideas. And being able to bring that back, we have to share more. And I love, like you said, the social media, being able to communicate with other. And so I use Twitter for that also as a support to see educational. Facebook I mainly do for family, but Twitter I use for just to reach out to other educators. So, you have to have that support system, that release. I would advise them to be a part of an organization so that you're not in this fight alone. Todd, you at a school like I am that is small. It's not that many of us, and my campus in my school district is one of only 3 schools. So it's one elementary, one middle school, one high school. So when you're out there by yourself, the fight, you can get inundated in the fight, and you can lose focus, but every day when I walk in the building and I see those babies' eyes, they're excited about coming to school. And hey, Dr. Washington, you smell so good, those type, and you just don't know the impact you have. And what has kept me going is the fact that wherever I go now, I've been in education for 28 years, wherever I go, we have been as far as Florida, we have been as far as California, and I run into my students. They remember you and tell you how impactful you were. And I guess the latest one was one of my former students at Klein Forest High School reached out to me and sent me an email saying that he had been searching for me because of the impact that I had on his life, and I didn't even know it. Just a smile. That he said words of encouragement when he was down. He said, "You didn't know, Dr. Washington, what I was going through, but when I would see you, it really your advice helped me." And he told me that even though he got in trouble, I didn't make him feel like it was the end of the world, that he could bounce back from that. And he just wanted to reach out to me to let me know how successful he was now working for NRG. And I mean, it's just awesome. And so that is, those little tidbits that you run into, and you run into the kids that remind you to refocus on why we doing what we're doing. That's why I love your book, Kids Deserve It, because you just don't know them passing by and smelling you and saying you smell good when they come from a home that's full of cigarette smoke. And so when they come to school and smell something different, you want to give them something different and give them hope. And so that with the support system, and then the other organization I'm with is the women's organization, which is powerful for women in leadership positions. As the women's school executives of all levels, and so we get together and just hoot and holler and have our fun as women. And I'm looking for that's actually coming up this weekend. But just that support group. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. And then I always say, God send you those pearls of your seeds that you have planted when you need it. Because what happened was when I shared that with my teachers to encourage them about the impact that they're having, one of my teachers, one of my aides actually framed the email and put it in a beautiful frame and gave it to me for Christmas, and it just brought tears to my eyes. I'm like, so I have that in my office, and he's in my office, and just a reminder of why you do what you're doing. And we don't get paid all the money, so get that out your brain. If our rewards are in the productive citizens that we contribute to society.
Right. Well, Kathryn, I want to ask you one final question. And you are such an open book, and you share such great ideas and resources and about you. Why do you believe that it is important for us as educators, as humans, as leaders, as any of that, to be telling our stories?
Well, to me, telling your story is an age-old system that I've seen all the time. Growing up in the church, and it always would be like at New Year's Eve, we have a watch night, and my grandmother would get up and she would testify of what has gone on in her life. And to me, when you share your story, you give people hope. You connect with them saying, hey, I went through the same thing and I survived, so will you. And it just keep people living, and they hear, oh my God, well, we do have more in common than we have. That's, if you don't talk to people, you won't get to know them and know that we have more in common than we have that are not in common. Right. And so when we share our stories and share ideas, I get enrichment out of that, sharing that, because I can tell you of an incident that happened and what I did to do it, and then you can build upon it. I had one particular mentor when I was in Klein, when she moved on, she gave me one of her jobs or duties that she had to do. I think it was like the senior awards or something like that. And she showed me how she did it. And then after I said, oh, okay, I can build upon that. And then she said, oh my God, you took it to the moon. And I'm like, well, I was just putting my spin on it, but the foundation was laid for you to build upon the creativity.
Right.
And you just add, to make it build and to make it a better. To me, we would make a better world if we would share more and share our stories so that we can see that we are alike and have the same passion and the same desires and want a better world and want these children to be successful. And so that I can still have Social Security when I retire.
There you go. Well, Kathryn, I gotta say, I absolutely adore you. I think you are brilliant, and I have loved getting to interact with you and meet you and all these fantastic things. And when you agreed to come on and be a guest, I was so excited to introduce you to even more people, because I just think that you are, and I hope people can see it if they're watching or feel it if they're listening, but you are such a light, and that's what I love you, is you just radiate joy, and it just draws people in. So thank you for coming on and sharing some of your story tonight. And I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so awesome. That means that I'm doing what I'm called to do.
There you
and
go.
So I appreciate you inviting me on. I was excited. I'm like, you want to talk to me? Really? So thank you for having me. It was great. It was a great Wednesday.
Yes. And thank you for everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. I hope we've had another guest this week that has inspired you and hoped that it's given you a voice to be brave enough to go out this week and tell your story. We'll see you all again next week.